Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're going to be checking out the SingMood S100 and we're going to be seeing how it sounds, how it is to use, and if I think you should pick one up. All of that soon to come, but if you guys could please hit those like and subscribe buttons, it really does help me out as a small channel. And with all that out of the way, let's get into this. So, starting out strong, how does this thing sound? And actually, I want to say it does sound pretty solid. It's got clear mids and highs and really solid bass. I will say it doesn't feel as punchy as some other speakers of this size do, but it definitely has a lot of throw to the sound. I don't know how to describe that entirely. I'm sure that there's a more technical way to describe it. But my best example would be I think if you put this in like an outside area or you put it in like a giant auditorium type room, it would easily fill the entire room. But you're not going to feel the punchy bass like you're sitting on a subwoofer. I don't know if that makes a ton of sense. Like, it definitely still has bass. It's more that it just, like, you don't feel it as much as you hear it. I don't know if that helps a ton, but that's kind of my best description of the actual sound quality. Because it is really solid, and you can also modify it. It's got adjustable bass and treble knobs on top of it that do a pretty good job of modifying the sound. I also want to say that this thing is designed for a rather large area. The lowest volume you can set it to is just, it's a lot for like listening by yourself in your room or something like that. And I completely get that's not what this thing's designed for. It just really does feel like they could have tuned the sound curve to maybe have the lowest volume be a little bit lower than it actually is. So that's kind of my experience with the sound, but I always like to throw in a test so you guys get to hear it as well. And I do want to put the disclaimer that I have my microphone and my sound processor and all of that other things will make a difference on how the sound sounds. So it's definitely not a one-to-one comparison. But I think that a lot of people always ask for it, so I like to throw it in here.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick. All the boys stare, can't help it, it's a habit. Knows that she wears short skirt and a jacket. I just wanna get her all alone on a mattress.
So yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like. Hopefully, it did a fairly good job showing you guys. And I also like to throw a microphone test in here because sometimes people are worried about the clarity on these microphones. We'll get a little bit into that more later, but here you go for that.
Testing, testing, testing. This is a test of the microphone. Testing, testing, testing. This is a test of the microphone.
So yeah, that's pretty much what it sounds like in general. So now let's continue on into the usability, and we'll actually start out with those microphones. They're very nice. They have rechargeable batteries and USB-C charging on the bottom of them. They're replaceable batteries, actually. I think they're 12650s. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that's what they are. But they're rechargeable and replaceable, so I really can't complain. They have nice metal housings, and they do a great job of transmitting audio. And they don't have a whole lot of feedback issues either. And there's even like a fun little message on it when you buy it that if you are having a lot of feedback issues, how to fix that. I mean, I haven't had any of them, but that's kind of thoughtful that they put that there. Next, continuing on with the actual unit itself. So I want to start out with kind of the features of this thing. It has a great deal of options you can do to modify the audio, add new audio inputs. Like, it has 2/4-inch jacks. It has like a ton of inputs and outputs. And I'm not going to go play by play through all the options, but I did test most of them out, and I think that they did a fairly good job. Like, I put an external mic on it, and it worked perfectly fine. And I assume if you just plugged a guitar or something of that nature in, you'd have a great time. Now, that's kind of the manual section of this thing, and now let's get into the screen. So the screen is basically just an Android tablet. That's what it is. It's an Android tablet, like running Android OS, built into the top of the machine. And you know what? I think that's actually a great solution because it doesn't mean you don't have to worry about some sort of proprietary software. Like, there is a skin running that is proprietary, but in general, it's Android, so you know it's going to at least work mostly. They didn't really reinvent the wheel, if you get what I'm saying. So yeah, the setup shouldn't be too out of the ordinary. You basically just like turn it on, and then you can sign into your different Google accounts, YouTube accounts, Apple Music accounts, Spotify, all of that stuff. All that works, I'm going to say, actually pretty seamlessly. I will say that sometimes it can be a little bit laggy within certain apps, but I don't think that's the iPad OS as much as, like, I was using Apple Music and it was being a little bit weird. And I think that's really down to Apple's rather lackluster implementation on Android rather than the machine itself. Because when you use the keyboard or other things like that, it's super responsive. Like, you can scroll on the settings menu super fast. It doesn't have any issues. I think that's more of an Apple thing, but I did want to point that out there. Continuing on with the hardware there, it does have like a full, I think it's probably 64 gigabytes because when you look into the settings, it says 49 are available. So you can store music on there if you want to put music on there and then take it somewhere where you're not going to have internet. That's super helpful, I think. Now, kind of getting into the usability of the software more than just kind of what it is. It's basically, it's everything you would want. You can go and play YouTube videos. You can go and listen to music on Spotify or Apple Music. and you can Bluetooth your thing to it. So pretty much all of those are, at least for me, what I would want to do with the karaoke machine. Even within like certain apps like Apple Music, the lyrics kind of can go along with you on the screen, which I think for a karaoke machine is a great feature. I do kind of wish that it took up more of the screen, but I think that's more of an Apple Music implementation type thing, where it's not really designed entirely for karaoke machines. Continuing on with the actual usability, though, I think that to be fair, it works really well as a machine. It's got caster wheels, which allow it to roll around, and you can also lock some of them, which makes it so that it doesn't roll away, which I think is super helpful. It's also got a handle on the back, so you can kind of drag it around with you. So I think if you wanted to bring this to events, it would actually be fairly usable. It's got nice handles on the side to lift it up. It's pretty utilitarian in that regard. As well, it does have a built-in battery, which I don't know exactly how many hours it lasts. I assume it matters a ton based off what you're using it for, the volume you're at, if you've got the screen brightness cranked up, all that type of things. But it's lasts me a solid couple hours. I will say though that the power port is in the panel on the top of it, which makes the cord kind of have to run and like go over there, and like it puts a lot of strain on the connector. So I think that probably could have been better placed at the bottom of the units to make it A, more discreet, and B, I really think that it's just going to yank on the power cord a bit much, and I think it'll fray over time. But obviously that's an assumption on my part. Maybe it won't. But yeah, it pretty much just does what it says it does. I will say it does have a few issues that I'm going to get into here. Starting out with within the YouTube app, I don't know if this is just something with maybe my internet or maybe it's something with my unit specifically. I'm not too sure. But I will say that when you play a YouTube video, it'll play like a minute or two of the video perfectly fine. No issues at all. It's not the highest fidelity or frame rate or anything, but it's a karaoke machine. I'm not expecting it to run it perfectly. What it'll do is about a minute or two into the video, it'll like pause and then load a bit, and then after that, you don't get any audio. I'm not too sure if that's an implementation on their side or it's YouTube's side. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. I also had a bit of an issue with the Bluetooth. So I connected my phone to it, worked perfectly fine. I turned it off, and then when I came back later, my phone, like, it wouldn't connect between the device and my phone entirely correctly. I'm not too sure. I deleted the device off of my phone, and then I attempted to connect it, and it worked perfectly fine the second time. So I'm not too sure. Maybe that was just a weird setup bug that I was having with my phone specifically, but that is something I did come across. Another thing that's kind of small but I did find annoying is that all of the knobs across the top of the control panel do have demarcations, like kind of where it's pointing, and the volume one spins infinitely. So that never has any real correlation as to pointing at like a minimum or a maximum. And I think it would just be better if they didn't do that. It's kind of nitpicky, but it's something that was really annoying to me. I don't know. I found it like more annoying. Like I would expect it to point where the percentage is if that's what it was doing, but it wasn't. And the last thing that I think they could improve on is that the back button, which is basically how you exit apps or like leave pages, it's just the Android back button, but it's on the UI, and they put it on the bottom right hand corner of the screen, which, to be fair, perfectly fine location. But the unfortunate part is that covers some UI like elements, and you can't really move it as far as I can tell. So, like when I was trying to open Apple Music at first, it wants you to like agree to the terms and conditions, but the agree button is under the back button. That's just really annoying. I pressed it about 100 times and eventually it did work. But there was other things I came across where it was blocking UI elements and I couldn't click on them because the back button was there and I would click on it. And to be fair, it wouldn't go back really, but it also wouldn't, I don't know, it just was like a weird responsiveness issue thing. And I think that if that was maybe a physical button, or maybe I had the option to like move it to the other side of the screen, which being that it's Android OS, I'm sure there's something that was like hacky I could do to move it to the other side of the screen, or maybe it's deep in settings somewhere that I just didn't see. I don't use Android a ton, but I think that that could be improved for sure. But yeah, those are like kind of my little nitpicks that I have with it. I mean, overall though, it is a really great product. It does sound pretty good. It probably could be maybe a little bit louder if you wanted to feel the bass for the music, but I feel like that's just more of an opinion as to what you're trying to do with it. If you're trying to really feel the music versus like cover a wide area. I don't know, especially for karaoke, I think that the wider area is probably a better call. So I do agree with what they did there, but that's like, I guess, my only real issue with it. Other than that, I really did have a great time using it, and it does do what it says it does. And that's really what I look for in a product. I don't like companies who mislead what their product actually is. And I think that, to be fair, it does what it says it does, and I can't complain. So if this is something you're interested in and you're looking at the price and you're like, I think that's a fair trade for my money, then I would definitely pick one up. I will say I haven't used a ton of things in this price range and of this size. The only real other thing would be the JBL, like I think it's like the Boombox 710 or something like that. But that was way more of a speaker and like not much of a karaoke machine. Like it was just a massive speaker. So I will say it is louder and it does sound a little bit better, but I don't think it's fair to compare them when there's like that one doesn't have a screen or anything like that. It's just more of a giant speaker. That's pretty much all I have for this video. I do want to say that they did provide this to me to review, but I mean, in all honesty, I'm going to give it away after this because I don't really need it. But I do want to point that out there because I just feel like it's good to be transparent. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any other questions or concerns, please just throw them in the comments. I'll try to do my best to answer all of them. And thank you so much for watching. And if you could drop those like and subscribes, that always does help me as a small channel. So thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.